Thanks for joining us for the message. We see this as the central part of our worship service. We'll have someone from our congregation read the passage and jump right into the text. Chapter 10, verses 11 to 18, and then I'll lead us in prayer. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, since he is not the shepherd and doesn't own the sheep, leaves them and runs away when he sees the wolf coming. The wolf then snatches and scatters them. This happens because he is a hired hand and doesn't care about the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. Just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, I lay down my life for the sheep. But I have other sheep that are not from this sheep pen. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. Then there will be one flock and one shepherd. This is why the Father loves me, because I lay down my life so that I may take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own. I have the right to lay it down, and I have the right to take it up again. I have received this command from my Father.
Well, Matt read not only from John 10, the scripture for this morning, but in his prayer, he read part of Psalm 23. During our worship practice this morning and our run-through for this morning, a young lady in the back of the auditorium brought this up to me. You may not be able to see it, but it's colored. It has a sheep and says, "The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need." And I don't know that I need to say anything more. We sang about it. Matt read it, prayed about it. But if you have your Bibles, open to John chapter 10, because that's where we will be looking this morning. Matt mentioned this is part of the I Am series that I have been in. And this is Jesus in his own words, using a picture describing who he is. And it parallels Matt's first message in Face to Face from Exodus 3:14, where God spoke to Moses in a burning bush that he should go back and help deliver his people from Pharaoh. And Moses asked this question, "Who should I say has sent me?" And God says, "I am has sent you." And this is the same phrase that Jesus uses in John 8:58. Ego eimi is the Greek phrase. It's the exact phrase that he used in the burning bush. And Jesus says, "Before Abraham was, I am." And then after that, 7 times he uses an illustration and actually tells us in this passage, John 10, he said this as an illustration. 7 metaphors of how he relates to humanity. And if you've been here in the past and you've heard these, you'll remember I did the bread of life. I am the bread of life. Jesus says, "I am the light of the world." Last time, "I am the gate." Today is, "I am the good shepherd." After that, he says, "I am the resurrection and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life." And the last one, he says, "I am the true vine." Last time, in this same passage of John chapter 10, he says, "I am the gate." This was all about access. We have access to heaven. We have access to eternal life, access to the Father through the gate. And Jesus claims that I am the gate, and he says, "I am the only gate." Others will try to come in from different ways, and those are thieves, those are robbers, those are come to kill and destroy. He says only access is through the true gate. Today, in the same passage, he says it a different way. "I am the good shepherd." Now, in the Bible, you will notice that shepherd and sheep is mentioned a lot. Matt has mentioned about with Moses being a shepherd. Abraham was a shepherd. Isaac was a shepherd. David was a shepherd. 400 times sheep are mentioned in the Bible, and about 100 times shepherds are mentioned in the Bible. One theme you will find, a lot of the times, sheep are not put in the best light. They're kind of cast in a bad light. They're described as helpless, senseless, defenseless, directionless, stubborn. And we know this because sheep have no sharp teeth. Sheep do not have a fierce growl. They're not fast. They don't have claws. There's nothing scary about sheep. As a matter of fact, that's why you tell your kids to count sheep to go to sleep. You don't say count snakes. You don't say count lions, right? Do you remember the movie Jumanji when they're playing the game and it releases all of these animals? It's like rhinos storming, elephants stomping on cars, even monkeys going and doing crazy things. There's lions. They all run in their house and lock the doors. There's no sheep running around because if a truck full of sheep fall over in your neighborhood, you don't go lock yourself in the house. You call the kids, hey, there's sheep out here. And you go out and like, oh, little sheepies. And you play with the sheep because they're not scary. And for all these reasons, we see in the Bible that sheep are completely dependent on the shepherd. And the picture is sheep are a lot like us. Now, that doesn't sound very encouraging because you're like, didn't you say that they're like dumb and stubborn? Well, I actually said they're dumb, stubborn, helpless, senseless, defenseless, and directionless. So, if you get the picture, Isaiah 53 says it like this: we're all like sheep and we've gone astray. Psalm 100 says, know that the Lord is good. It is he who's made us. We are his and we are his people. We are the sheep of his pasture. In Psalm 23, which you've heard this morning, David describes that the Lord is my shepherd. He's describing himself as a sheep. In verse 11 and verse 14 that we get in this morning of I am the good shepherd, it uses the article the, because Jesus is saying, I am the good shepherd. I am not one of the shepherds. I am the good shepherd. And he says it twice, and in verse 16, he actually says there is one shepherd. And there's a lot we could get into this morning in the message and in this passage about sheep and shepherds, but I thought this could be just a morning of celebration, a celebration of the good shepherd. What makes Jesus the good shepherd? And the great thing is, I don't have to make up the illustration this morning. It's right here. We don't have to make up the points. They're right in the message, right in the verses. So let's do the first one that Jesus describes that makes himself the good shepherd. In verse number 11, he says the good shepherd is sacrificial. Verse 11, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. In verse number 15, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, I lay down my life for the sheep. I lay it down. I give it up. This is sacrificial language that Jesus is using. And you know, sacrifice is really not a popular term. It's not something that necessarily you use all of the time, but most of the time when you use it, it's a picture. Now, I'm a sports fan, and one of the pictures I think of when I hear sacrifice is I think of baseball and the sacrifice bunt. If you're a baseball fan, you already know what the sacrifice bunt is. But the sacrifice bunt is where you give up yourself at the plate. You hold your bat out to hit the ball out for the purpose of getting out so that someone else can advance, so somebody else can move forward. And whether they're on first base, they get to second. And one of the most exciting plays in baseball is when they do a squeeze bunt play and the guy's on third running home. And it's one of the special things about the sacrifice bunt. And one of the things about the sacrifice is you don't get to be on base. The guy that sacrifice bunts is never the winning run. He actually doesn't even usually get to make it to first base. He just goes to the dugout. He never gets celebrated. When the winning run comes in and crosses home plate, it's never the guy that gave the sacrifice because he gave himself up. And I was thinking about some of the great sacrificial bunts in Major League Baseball history. I thought, I'll Google that. The ultimate sacrifice in baseball. Do you know if you Google ultimate sacrifice in baseball, you will not find a bunt that someone scored for the World Series. You won't find one that someone used a sacrifice to get someone on base in the playoffs. If you Google greatest sacrifice in Major League Baseball, you'll get a list of 205 Major League Baseball players that gave their life for their country, because that's the ultimate sacrifice. And there are stories of guys that their life was all about baseball from a kid. And they made it to the major leagues. And one day, they did not play baseball. They were on the battlefield and gave the ultimate sacrifice. This is what the Good Shepherd is saying he is willing to do and he would do. This is what good shepherds would do. They would stand in the way of harm and be willing to give themselves up. And we were told earlier that this is the place they stand in the way of: thieves, robbers, lions, bears, wolves, anything that would harm the sheep. The shepherd is willing to risk his life for the sheep. And Jesus says, this is what I am willing to do. And of course, this is a picture of the cross. This is what he does. He stands in the way. Stands in the way of what? He stands in the way of the thing that threatens us the most. What threatens us the most? Sin and death. He says, I am the good shepherd, and I'm willing to stand in the way of the thing that opposes you the most. You see, we know this to be true. All sin will be punished. All accounts will be settled. As a matter of fact, when you watch the news of a court case, they usually have at the end someone on the court steps and they're interviewing. And one of the things that you will hear is maybe the family or friends will say, I'm just so glad that justice was served. Or you'll have a family that'll say, we're so sad because justice we don't feel was served. That is in us, right? That we want justice to be served because we are made in the image of God, and justice will be served. So how does this work? Listen to 2 Corinthians 5:21. God made him, Jesus, the Good Shepherd, God made him who knew no sin to be sin for us. So here is the picture. The picture is God and justice upon sin. And here is us, sinful people. And the wrath of God will come to settle the account of sin. And Jesus says, I am willing to stand in the way. The wrath of God coming this way. And Jesus says, I will give up myself and take it all. Now, that would be just good in of itself. That would be the mercy of God. But the verse continues. It gets better than that. It says, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Simply put, my sin on him, his righteousness on me. So when God sees Jesus, the one standing in the way, what does he see? He sees my sin. What does he see me back here? He sees God's righteousness. He sees my sin on Jesus. He sees Jesus' righteousness on me. He became sin who knew no sin, that we might become the righteousness of God. That, my friends, is a good shepherd. In verse 18, he says, no one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own. I have the right to lay it down, and I have the right to take it up again. He willingly lays down his life. And we know this because later at the Garden of Gethsemane in Mark 14:36, he cries out to his Father and says, "All things are possible for you. Take this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will." And 3 times we learn that Jesus prayed that. He was willing to. And why would he do that? Hebrews tells us, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame. What joy that was set before him? Well, I think joy number 1 of fulfilling God's purpose for him, his Father's purpose, pleasing his Father, sitting at the right hand of the Father. And then the joy of seeing the restoration of those that sin and death would be conquered, and he was looking at you and I. That was the joy. In other words, he says, I do this on my own accord, but as we learned at Easter, I have the right to take it up again. I don't have to stay dead. I can rise again, and he does rise again. We call this sacrificial love, and if you've been around Valley long enough, you've heard this throughout the theme of the message. We call this agape love. It's the love that saves and restores humanity's brokenness, and our relationship with God can be restored. You can't talk about sacrifice without talking about love. And John 15:13 says it this way, "Greater love has no one than this, than a man lay down his life for his own friends." He demonstrated his love towards us. Even while we were yet sinners, he died for us, and he demonstrated in that way. So first, the Good Shepherd is sacrificial. Second, the Good Shepherd is caring. Look at verse 12 and 13. The hired hand, since he is not the shepherd and does not own his sheep, leaves them and runs away when he sees a wolf coming. The wolf then snatches and scatters them. This happens because he is a hired hand and doesn't care about the sheep. This is the comparison. A good shepherd versus a hired hand. A hired hand gets paid to take care of the sheep. The good shepherd is vested. He cares for the sheep. So what's a hired hand do? He flees when he sees danger. What does the good shepherd do? He stays and fights. Now, just pause here for a second, because this is a reminder that in John chapter 10, in the beginning part, that he says there's a danger. There is a real danger. The danger describes as those who come to want to steal, to kill, and destroy. This is Satan's plan for your life, and he never stops. Steal your peace, kill your joy, destroy your relationships. You see this, don't you? All around. You feel this, don't you? Temptation, discouragement, bitterness, anger, hurt. As a matter of fact, just those 5 that I list, you can probably remember in the last month going through temptation, discouragement, having bitterness, anger, hurt. You know what it looks like? Craig described it last week in his message. It's right in Romans. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie. That's the danger that lives right around you. And you know, the sheep aren't even aware of this. And I think that's probably the biggest danger as we walk around just with unawareness that someone is out to steal, kill, and destroy. But you know what? You do not have to be discouraged, because a good shepherd is here. One that walks right alongside you to help you fight your battles. And the difference here is this is a calling. The Good Shepherd is a calling. It's not a job. Now, next week's Mother's Day, and moms probably know this more than anything. Moms know the difference between a calling and a job, right? So when your kid is sick, There's no punch-out clock. You don't tell your kid, I'm sorry, you got sick outside of the hours of 9 to 5. Figure it out. And what they mean figure it out is then they go ask dad. And his hours are even shorter. Like his are like 11 to 3. Right? Even for moms here this morning, if the nursery texts you, you don't text back and say, Pastor Ice is only on point 2. Right? I'll get there when he's done. Right? You get up and you go because the nursery texted and you gotta go. It's a calling. Another way that Jesus puts it is ownership. These are my sheep. You can trust me because you are mine. I mean, you know this. If you've ever rented something versus owning it, you might own a Corvette or you might own a Mustang. You treat it nice. But the day you rent one, you drive it like you're a NASCAR driver, right? All the warnings and signs don't mean anything to you because you're returning this at the end of the week and it doesn't matter anymore. But that's not what a good shepherd does. That's what a hired hand does. I'm just returning these at the end of the day. Jesus says, I created you. I formed you. I have a plan for you. Plans to give you hope. Plans to give you a future. He sees something that belongs to him and he says, I am not going to run away. I'm going to run towards the danger. I love Psalm 23 that we have read this morning. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. The good shepherd says, trust me, I have everything you need. You can lie down in green pastures. You can be beside quiet waters. You can have your soul restored because he cares about you. It also means his care goes on through eternity. You are eternally secure. You are eternally secure because the Good Shepherd has paid the price. For by grace you are saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. That's the great part of that passage. It's not dependent on you. It's dependent on the grace of God, which is a gift. He doesn't care because he has to. He cares because he wants to, and he cares about every need that the sheep have. God cares about every need. There is no need too small. There is no need too great in your life that God does not care about. And at 1 Peter 5:7 says, then do this, cast all of your cares upon him because he cares for you. The NIV, I like that, cast all of your anxiety upon him. We're not big in number this morning, but what we are is, I think, big in anxiety. It probably won't get you to the end of this week that there is something that brings anxiety in your life, and the Good Shepherd says, I care, and cast that upon me. The third one, he's caring, he's also personal. Verse number 14, I am the Good Shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. This is relational terms here. He is a personal shepherd. God is not a distant God that cannot be known and is not distant to humanity. He is personable, and he's a knowable God. Do you know Jesus personally? Not just do you know about Jesus. Do you know him personally? The picture that Jesus gives a couple of times is what happens when a sheep goes missing. And that would happen. You get back to the sheep pen. The shepherd's counting. He knows them by name, which we learned in the passage earlier. Tom, Susie, Shorty, Spot. Where's Mike? Mike, where'd you go? He's not there. The shepherd valued each one of his sheep. So what do you do when you lose something valuable? We've all had that. Not too long ago, we have friends that asked us to watch their dog. When you watch a dog, there's a few essentials. Feed the dog, give him water, show him attention here and there, right? Let him out to go to the bathroom. So we watched their dog for a few days, and we went out to dinner, and we came home. We have a dog, Sadie. Opened the door, Sadie's right there. Oh, you're home, it's so exciting. The opposite of your kids, right? You're home, this is so great. Harvey wasn't there. So we're like, where's Harvey? So, he's probably out in the backyard. Open the door, Harvey! Harvey's not in the backyard. You get little anxious, but you kind of cover it up with jokes. Oh, Sadie, did you lock Harvey in the bathroom again when we were gone? Sadie's like, I don't have opposable thumbs. I can't do that. He's probably upstairs. Go upstairs. Harvey's not there. So now you're getting a little anxious, right? The jokes aren't as funny anymore. Someone says, don't panic. And their voice sounds 100% panic when they say that. So I get the car. It's night out. Go search the neighborhood for Harvey. Get in the car. You guys, wait around here. Go search. I don't see Harvey. I call Jill. Jill, any Harvey there? No Harvey there. I watched this movie once where the dog, they go home. Yeah, homeward bound. Science. Harvey probably went home. Go to the owner's house. Search around. No Harvey. It's time to panic. There is really one big job when you watch a dog. Don't lose the dog, right? That's like first on but no one puts that first on the list. They give you our dogs a little this, you only feed them 1 cup a day. There's never on the list, and don't lose our dog. On my way home, Jill, the phone rings, and it's Jill, and I'm like, please be good news, please be good news. And this is all only in 10 minutes, right? It feels like hours, but it's only 10 minutes. Jill says, we decided that we're going to go out to look for Harvey around the house. And we open up the front door, and who's right there? Harvey. Just sitting there hey, what's going on? So you guys know Jill. So what's Jill do? Does she A, Harvey, what were you doing? You stupid, dumb dog. You had us so worried you're going to need to spend a time out. Or was it B, Jill and Chloe, Harvey, he's home. Let's get out the ice cream and cake. Now, that's their answer to everything, so just so you know. But it was a celebration. Harvey's home. Let's call Dad. It was exciting. Nothing big. He was actually sitting out in the front yard just waiting for us. If you're wanting to know what happened and why Harvey decided to escape, we had snow, and there was a snowbank, and Harvey figured out if I go up that snowbank, I can jump over the fence. There's these, we know this because they just snow. There's these 2 paws going up the snowbank in the snow, and then there's this little poof outside the fence. Our dog, not so smart. Our dog, if it sees an object in the way, goes around, doesn't know how to jump over anything. Harvey, the escape artist. Now don't lose the whole message because of Harvey today, because his owners are in the service today. You can ask them about it. They may not even know this story. I don't know if we told them this. But the point of the story is, don't have us watch your dog. That's the point. Do not ask us. This has nothing to do with the message. I just wanted to get it in there. We do not want to watch your dog. The point is, when you lose something valuable, you go find it. And Jesus said this. When I have 99 sheep, I don't go, that's good enough. I'm missing one. Matthew 18, what do you think? If a man owns 100 sheep and one of them wanders away, will he not leave the 99 on the hill and go to look for the one that wandered off? And if he finds it, truly, I tell you, he is happier about the one sheep than about 99 that did not wander away. I.e., Sadie was like, what's the big deal? The other dog. Why are you so excited? Well, you aren't the one that ran off. That's why we're excited. God will go chasing after you. His goodness, his faithful love, his mercy will pursue you, and it will pursue you all the days of your life. When you feel the shepherd's hook pulling you back in and you're like, that's God's goodness. That's God's mercy pursuing you. Hebrews 7:25 says it this way. Therefore, he is able to save completely those who come to God through him, because he always lives to intercede for them. That's what he lives to do, and he's always doing it. I love the book, and if you have not read it, Gentle and Lowly has a lot about this in there. Listen to this from Dave Ortland in Gentle and Lowly. To the uttermost. God's forgiving, redeeming, restoring touch reaches down into the darkest crevices of our souls. Those places we are most ashamed, most defeated, his heart willingly goes there. He knows us to the uttermost. He saves us to the uttermost because his heart is always drawn out to us to the uttermost. See, we're 50-50 people. We're a meet you halfway kind of people, not the Good Shepherd. We stop loving when we're betrayed. The Good Shepherd loves through the betrayal all the way to death. We love with limits. His love, no limits to the end. And so even when I go through the darkest valley, I don't have to fear danger. It says, for you are with me. Not with the flock. David says, you are with me. It's very personal. He says, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. See, David was that one. David was the one that wandered off. And God said, I'm not done with you. And he pursued him, didn't he? Sometime in your life, you will be that one. There will be a time in your life when the temptation, the discouragement gets to you. And God says, I'm a personal shepherd. I care about the flock, but I care about you. So, as we finish up, what is the response? What is the response to the statement, I am the Good Shepherd? I usually find 3 responses, and there's more, but these are typically the 3 that I see. The first one is the response, no shepherd would want me. Remember how I said sheep are stubborn, they're dirty. I think the response sometimes is, I feel that way. What shepherd would want me? Matthew 11:28 says, come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke, learn from me, because I am lowly and humble in heart, and you will find rest to your souls. Do you know what the requirements there were? Weary and burdened. As a matter of fact, when Jesus came to earth, do you remember the nickname they gave him? Jesus, the friend of sinners. because that's what he was always doing. He was reaching out to the weary and the heavy burdened and the sinners. And he demonstrated this, and the religious leaders did not like it. God is rich in mercy. He delights in mercy, and it flows like an infinite fountain from him to those that need it. When you say no shepherd would want me, Jesus is saying that's the ones that I came for. Second response I see some people give, I don't need a shepherd. And the problem with this is I find that often the reason people don't feel they need a shepherd is they're basing that on looking around them. Like, if I look at my friends, I'm better than this guy. That guy's not that good of a husband. I'm better than that. Right? I have this friend that struggles with this. I don't struggle with that. We build ourselves up and base it on as we look around. And what did Jesus call that? He called it self-righteousness. And he said God sees that just as filth. Romans 10:3 says it like this: since they are ignorant of the righteousness of God, they have attempted to establish their own righteousness. Like, I'm not Bob. And if you think you're going to stand before God someday and say, I'm not like Bob and Tom, and that's your standard of righteousness, God says the standard is perfection. And if you today have put yourself under the Good Shepherd, you have put your faith in Jesus, the same grace that saved you, God says, is the same grace you need the rest of your life. We call it, when you live like I don't need a shepherd, as a dry faith. You need the shepherd for eternal security. You need the shepherd every day of your life. The third response is the best response. A shepherd is my only hope. And this is what I hope you come to the conclusion this morning. In Psalm 119, David said it like this: I have wandered away like a lost sheep. Come and find me. Not only do we need a shepherd is actually your only hope. And a good shepherd is your only hope. So my takeaway this morning, those are the responses I often see. My takeaway this morning is be a sheep. Some of us are failing at being a good sheep. Do you know what it means to be a good sheep? You need a shepherd, and you just trust fully in the shepherd. You restfully follow the shepherd. You don't have to strive. You don't have to create your own path. You don't have to figure it out by yourself. Because listen to the description of what it means to be a sheep. In Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. That is an amazing phrase. If the Lord's your shepherd, you have everything you need. You can lie down in green pastures. The waters you drink from, quiet waters. Your life restored. The paths you take, it's the right path. You are comforted. And even when you walk through the valley, He's right with you. You don't have anything to fear. Because you will go through the valley, right? Right there beside you, nothing to fear. As a matter of fact, what's he do? He prepares a table right in front of the enemies. I mean, you're back there, and he's like, I got it. Your cup, it's overflowing. And goodness and mercy and faithful love follow you all the days of your life. It's so crazy that the solution is be a sheep. It's like you described a sheep. How do I not be that? And he's like, no, just be under the good shepherd. The one that will give everything for you sacrificially, that cares about every one of your needs. The one that knows you personally by name.